So I would want you to take me through a discussion of what you found during the research. Maybe if you can take me through what you found by giving reference to what you found from very specific chapters, that would be very helpful.
I think it might be important that let's start by chapter 2 of the book. Because largely, maybe by way of introduction, in this book, I focus on 3 different periods: 1890 to 1979, at the advent of independence, and then 1980 up to 1999. When we were waiting to welcome the new millennium, and then from 2000 onwards. That's the broad framework in terms of the book. So in chapter 2, I focus on the critical factors that actually spurred the growth of Harare between 1890 and 1979. These are largely 4 or 5 factors that contributed to the growth of Harare during that period. The first one is that the planning philosophy was segregation-based. So the planning of the CBD and the European areas, which were the low-density suburbs, was completely different to the planning, administration, and management of the high-density suburbs where Africans used to live. They were usually called the African areas or township. Secondly, the municipal administration was different. If you used to live in Mount Pleasant, there was a town council there that was responsible for Mount Pleasant. The CBD was the responsibility of the Salisbury City Council. And when you look at the African townships, they were not part of the Salisbury City Council. They were actually run by native advisory boards, which predominantly had little power at all. So that was how the administration was structured. One thing that was also on the positive during that time, though debatable, was that the urban economy over time, it actually changed completely. Because remember in 1890, when the Kamban arrived and when it took over the administration of both the country and the city, our ways of doing things in terms of our economy was completely different with what was introduced then. And then the final point I make in this chapter is on the restricted infrastructure provision. You will see that infrastructure was prioritized in the western, or no, not the western, actually the northern suburbs or the low density suburbs where the Europeans used to live. While East Africans were actually restricted to high density suburbs in overcrowded conditions. And in summary of chapter 2, for 9 decades, the growth of Harare was actually driven by settler economic interests. And this manifested in an uneven built environment and restricted services to Africans. So that's all about chapter 2. When we get to the 3rd chapter, I then begin to examine the growth of Harare between 1980 up to 2000. And what we see is that the advent of majority rule drastically reshaped both the economic and human geography in the city.
Yes.
Extensive changes actually occurred in Harare. And these were premised on inclusive planning and developments. The municipality was integrated to then provide services to all the high density, the CBD, and the low density suburbs. The urban economy itself was diversified. And we also saw extensive expansion of infrastructure and services to formal African areas. If you look at in 1980, there was no Budiriro. But Budiriro was developed from Budiriro 1 to Budiriro 5, going there about. We also saw extensive developments in the Kwazana. Kwazana 1 to Kwazana 7 and extension as well. We also saw extensive development in Zoara Sekwa as well. We saw extensive developments in Sunningdale, in many other areas in the city. So what we learn is that the changes that happened at independence, they transformed both the form and the structure of the city. And in the 4th chapter, I then try to trace the growth of City of Harare as an institution. and its relations with national government. Why is this important? This is largely because the growth of the city is not necessarily just infrastructure and amongst others. You need an institution that is strong enough to be able to manage the planning of the city, to manage land within the city and its development, to be able to generate revenues and finance council programs. So I then discuss the political and electoral contest between the country's ruling and many opposition parties, which I think the impact has been highly consequential in as far as the development of the city is concerned in the post-2000 era.